Welcome to the Every Night is Game Night preview series, the show where designers and publishers share their passion and answer critical questions about their Kickstarter projects. If you're on the fence about a pledge, this is the show for you.
Every Night is Game Night Preview Series, Episode 29, Herbaceous Sprouts with Eduardo Baraf. Yo, my peoples, what's up? Welcome back to the Every Night is Game Night Preview Series. I'm your host, Jason. Thank you so much for joining us. And today, I have a real treat. It's a game, or I guess a collection of games that I've really come to enjoy. We've reviewed those games. The games being Herbaceous and Sensitive of Water very recently in the pod. Another game kind of in that family is coming out on Kickstarter, and I'm happy to welcome the person behind all of these games that are helping bring them to you, the designer and also the head of Pencil First Games, and the you may remember him from a YouTube channel called Gaming with Ito. This is Ed Baraf. Welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. And just to clarify quickly, while I do design games, these games were designed by Steve Finn. I've really been the project lead, bringing together his work, developing it, and Beth Sobel's art. So, but I do design other games.
Mm-hmm. And Keith Matika has been designing the solo mode for you guys.
Absolutely. Keith has done the solo, and Ben Schulman does the graphic design to go through the whole list. And Keith's last name is Mateka, like Mateka your money. The way to remember it. That's how he taught me, and my whole family knows it now. So yeah. Keith and I are going to be sharing a booth at Origins this year, so it'll be fun.
I know that the J is silent. I was like, I got the J, I got the silent J.
Yeah, no, you'd never guess
Work on the rest of it.
That's a good way. You'll remember it now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I mean, take your money. There it is. You keep making good games, you could have my money. All right.
Sure.
All right. So we are here talking about a Kickstarter that, as this episode drops, will be live. That is Herbaceous Sprouts.
Yes.
So actually, when I first saw this, so we all knew Herbaceous. Herbaceous came out, I believe, in 2017. Little card game. We enjoyed it. And I see Herbaceous Sprouts, and I'm thinking, expansion? No, it is a standalone game. It is Herbaceous, the dice game. So we are pretty excited about that here in amongst our listeners. So maybe we can actually, before we even get to Herbaceous Sprouts, you've never been on the show before, so maybe you could introduce yourselves. For those of us who do not follow your YouTube channel, you should go over there and give that YouTube channel a like. But maybe you can introduce yourself. We could start with how you got your start into gaming.
Yeah, sure. Well, so I've had the good fortune of being in gaming most of my career, though I was in video games. And after doing video games for a really long time, actually had been laid off from Disney and decided to work on my own game, Liftoff, Get Me Off This Planet. It actually had been in development for some time, but after Disney, do the Kickstarter thing and get it out there. And the Kickstarter was a success, and that's sort of what kicked off Pencil First Games. And it was actually around that time I shipped it. We completed the Kickstarter, and I was so thankful to the community that I felt like I wanted to contribute and be a part of the community. But game development takes a long time. Like it could be a year before you engage again. You're working on your own. So at that point, I actually started Gaming with Edo, or at the time it was Edo's Game Reviews, which was just short reviews of games and that I just wanted to contribute and share with people, games I liked and that I thought other people would enjoy. I started doing Kickstarter previews and then started doing contributions to League of Game Makers, where I would do Q&As, Kickstarter, creator advice, and all sorts of industry videos, which have covered a wide range of topics. So that's what I do with Gaming with Edo on YouTube. And then Pencil First Games has now published seven games have shipped. We have Herbaceous Sprouts, obviously, and we did Heroes Welcome with Monkey Jump Games earlier this year. But it's been pretty awesome. It's just a hobby publisher, but we're starting to be known, and certainly Herbaceous and Sunset Over Water has been a big part of that. But it's been great to be a part of the board gaming scene.
Awesome, definitely. Why Pencil First Games? What's the idea behind the name?
Well, it's one of those things you think of like, what should I name my company? And you're going through all these things in your head, and some things you like, some things you don't. But for me, Pencil First is everything I do at Pencil First Games really does start with a pencil first, right? Like I like sort of working with pen and paper or pencil and paper from a design perspective, from an art perspective. And it just sort of felt right. And the sort of slogan or bottom line is Pencil First Games, designed with passion. Designed with passion, pencil first. And it also speaks to like iteration and being willing to erase things and change things. But it's not the greatest name from a board game company perspective, right? Like it's very much an indie hobbyist game company name. It's not so much a casual board game gain a following name, but it's cool. It felt right at the time, and I've been happy with it since.
All right, very cool. Let us get into the game, Herbaceous Sprouts, which is the dice game iteration, speaking of iteration, upon Herbaceous. Also designed by Dr. Steve Finn. Had a chance to meet Dr. Finn at a recent game meetup. Really, really cool guy. Happy that more and more of his stuff is getting out into the world. So maybe you can give us the executive summary and some basic gameplay, and then we can get into things from there.
Sure. And one thing about Dr. Finn, I've interviewed him on a Q&A, which is really a great one. He is a true indie guy. I mean, he was hand making his games and passing them around New York on VHS or in Seattle, wherever he was, and quite an incredible story, Steve Finn. But Herbaceous Sprouts, so here's the interesting thing. There's some confusion. People are like, is it a sequel? Is it not? Herbaceous, for those who have played, is this elegant, simple, beautiful, fun game where it's push your luck and set collection, but it's really just these two dynamics. One is pick a card and decide, do I want that or do I want to give it to everybody? And whatever decision I make, the next card is going to be the opposite, right? So it's like bird in the hand versus bird in the bush or whatever that expression is. And then along the same way, you're sort of scoring sets, and the pot in the middle is growing. So you're thinking about, do I score now or do I wait until it comes back to my turn? And it's really simple. It's a true 20-minute filler game, and we love it. And so when we made that game, the team had a great time together. We really enjoyed making a product together. And so I think it might have been Beth that kicked it off. It was sort of like, well, what's the next game? and then we made Sunset Over Water. And then after Sunset Over Water, which is about it's like a half a step up from Herbaceous. There's a couple more mechanics going on, but it's still relatively simple. But, if I were to order them, I'd say Herbaceous is a lighter game. We wanted to come back to Herbaceous, but I don't think the game needs, there's a little Kickstarter mini expansion, which is a few cards and adds some extra flavor to it. But it just isn't a game that you're just going to start chucking expansions on. It sort of ruins it when you add. It's like Queen Domino to King Domino, right? Queen Domino's a good game, but you're not like, boy, King Domino needs a bunch of more complexity in it. And
we're not waiting for Prince Domino or
and so when we were talking about it, we thought we'd do a dice game, but one of the interesting things is we were exploring it. Most of the time people think of dice. It's Herbaceous Sprouts is really Herbaceous the board game in a way, because a lot of people when they think of a dice game, they think about something that's lighter than something that's already the game. So if you've played like Istanbul Dice is going to be a simpler version of Istanbul, right? It's not going to be a more complex version,
right?
But like a simpler version of Herbaceous with dice would just be like zombie dice or Batman dice, where you're just rolling and trying to get sets without whammies, right? And that's not interesting, and that's not special. And so we were working on it, and we really started developing this game where you would have this sort of dice drafting, but not just the dice, also the card ability with it. So in Herbaceous Sprouts, essentially somebody's the master gardener, and on their turn they're going to flip over a number of tool cards. Each is like a special ability card, and then roll on top of them dice. And some have 3 dice on them, some have 2 dice on them, but the dice that get rolled onto them are those faces, right? You can't, if it rolls saffron, it's a saffron or a lavender. And then...
And the dice are custom dice, so it has the familiar herbaceous herbs with like saffron and rosemary and dill or whatever.
Yeah, and actually that was a big part of it for us was as we were going, it became clear we just wanted to have all of these seed dice for the different, the different flowers. And it just, it so clearly was, hey, this is an opportunity to make some just amazing, fantastic, gorgeous dice that are just for this casual game. But it's so important to us that these games are accessible. Like these are really games that like I literally play with my mom and who doesn't game that much. And
But excellent Kickstarter preview with your mom demonstrating Herbaceous on the
yeah,
Kickstarter page.
yeah, she was great. She was great. But it's those simple things where it's not an icon, it's really the actual color art, which like Star Wars Destiny dice. Those little bits really help make it something that's just, it's more complex than Herbaceous, right? It's not, it's a step up from Herbaceous. It's an extra 10 minutes. It's a 30-minute game, not a 20-minute game. But, it's one of those things that each and every little effort to make it accessible helps. And so you've got these beautiful dice, and each player is going to select their dice. And what we did is the idea was to invert Herbaceous. Like in Herbaceous, the resources are in the middle, and everyone's making their own sets in front of them. What we did was we have this board. There's the dice, but there's also a board which represents everyone's garden or the community garden, and you're competing over spots that are valued, more and more valuable spots via set collection, like Herbaceous. So that is there's all the same. So there's a plot for 3 of the same, and 4 of the same, and 5 of the same, and 6 of the same. And guess what? 6 of the same is worth the most points. So, but there's only one spot, right? So everyone's sort of trying to collect and work towards 6 of the same, but maybe you have 4, and the guy to your left has 5 dice, and you have to say, do I try, or maybe you have 5 and the guy to your left has 5, and you say, do I try and wait for 6, or do I take 5, because he might not ever get the 6th resource, or I might not ever get the 6th resource. So it really carries a lot of the same vibe and delight and pleasure of Herbaceous, but it really is a very different game, and they complement each other well.
And it's the tool cards that seem to be the difference. So like when you play an Herbaceous game and you're pulling the deck and you say, okay, I have my rosemary, I'm working on 3 rosemary. Do I chuck this and try to go for the whatever the 1, 2, 3 pot is, like that special scoring pot, and go for the biscuit? You don't really have a lot of control over that. So like you're just kind of hoping and praying.
Sure.
Counting up whoever has other cards, whatever it is.
Pushing
and this one, the tool cards provide that mitigation. So like you can roll your dice, but then you're looking at those tools saying, I may be able to use this for that. And if I get this, then I can use this tool for that. There's definitely an extra level of strategery, for lack of a better word.
Sure. I mean, it's dice manipulation, right? And so since each die represents not one herb, but many herbs on different sides, you have re-rolls, you have rolling 1, you have a tool that lets you flip something over to any side you want. So a lot of the decisions have to do with what's showing, but what each tool lets you do. And it's one of those funny, interesting things. I don't want to, Keith certainly enjoys Herbaceous, but generally speaking, I think, he's sort of in that gamer category that might say Herbaceous is like, yeah, it's a fun light filler, but like I'm not going to pull it out 100 times unless I'm playing with people who really want a light game. Herbaceous Sprouts, on the other hand, he loves. Like it's got that, he's a big dice guy, but like it's got that extra layer of agency for the player. So you have the chance of the dice, but then you have the ability to sort of manipulate it. But it's not an engine builder, right? I just reviewed Thanos Rising, and Thanos Rising is all about like building all of these cards that give you more and more manipulation power. Herbaceous Sprouts is really just about, hey, you're collecting these sets and you're looking for opportunities to jump ahead of somebody else and get a set they were going for. Or in this game, there's the tall glass of lemonade, and so instead of the biscuit, it goes to the player who plants in 4 different sectors of the garden. So, you might change your mind to sort of rush the lemonade. And so again, I like all my games, right? Like all the games, Pencilverse games published, almost by definition, are games that I both loved and nurtured. So it's like I'm a little bit biased, but I think Herbaceous Sprout's going to really impress a lot of people. I think they're going to both feel and see the connection to Herbaceous, but see it as a really great standalone game.
Well, funny you mentioned that. So like the thing about, I think it was a year or two ago, it was Role Player and Sagrada. And Role Player was kind of the gamer version, and Sagrada was more of that family friendly. I'm not that Sagrada is like a light game, but would you say Herbaceous Sprouts is kind of on that Sagrada level if you've played that?
I would say Herbaceous Sprouts is even more accessible than Sagrada.
Okay.
And has more interesting decisions, I think. There'll
That's
be
a tall order. People love that
plenty
game.
of people who disagree with that.
Right.
Sagrada has, in many ways, sort of Sunset Over Water and Sagrada have similarities. Like Sagrada has your typical, goals and players working towards scoring on their boards, and there's lots of different things going on. And you have your dice drafting. I think Herbaceous Sprouts just sort of gets to that play a little faster, and also has a beautiful theme, but a different theme. I think many people will sort of say, "Oh, how does it compare to Sagrada?" And I think the answer is they're both beautiful games. They both have a lot of fun. Herbaceous Sprouts is just a little bit of a zippier game, and it doesn't. It's not quite the brain burn that Sagrada is. Like, there's never in Sagrada you have a lot more as the game progresses, a lot more min-maxing opportunity. Where in Herbaceous you're sort of like, well, what are my like 3 cool things I could do right now? I could go left, right, or center, and all right, I'm going to go left. And so it just ends up being, a game of Herbaceous, could be 30 minutes, but it could be 20. Whereas I would sort of say a game of Sagrada usually is 45 minutes and could be 30, right? So it's a great. Azul is another great game, right? That a lot of people have beloved, which I look at as a solid game and a beautiful package. But as I sort of said, I was on a board game gumbo last night. I sort of said it there too. I'm all for rock solid games and gorgeous packaging. Like I think that's a great thing, and so I don't have any problem with those comparisons.
Okay. How does the solo mode work?
So one of the things that I think Keith has done a great job at with his solo designs, in particular for the Pencil First games, is they're very much about giving you the experience and the sort of vibe of the multiplayer game, but without it just feeling like Automa, where like there's just another player playing another half. And so the way it works is you're playing against another gardener that's not a rival gardener. And there's sort of alternating phases. First, they're the master gardener. And when they're the master gardener, you're going to get an extra resource, but so one of the things in the game is these rival tokens, they look a little like weeds in the garden. But in anything but a 4-player game, there's a flop, and the card that's not selected, the tool card that's not selected, has a little indicator of where this sort of non-player token will go. So there's always sort of pressure on the board from these other tokens. In the solo mode, the Master Gardener goes ahead and he puts 2 of those tokens out. And you're trying to beat him. So it's not like Herbaceous or Sunset where you're trying to hit a score threshold. In Herbaceous Sprouts, you're competing against this rival. So he gets 2 moves. But you have some agency there because you're picking what you're going to get. And so if he gets a spot that you're already in, he can't take it. So you can sort of give him a bum move. So that's what happens on the Master. When you go to the Assistant Gardener side, the next round, he goes first and sort of automatically removes a card from the tool, from the flop, if you will, based on a deck that he has. And then you have to make a decision on the remaining. So it just gives you this fun feel of each round giving you sort of different agenda, and the board's filling up, and you need to sort of work to both that beat the other player, but then there's a score threshold if you succeed. So, and I think actually he's a little brutal. If you tie him, you lose. If I'm not mistaken, I have to go check again, but I'm pretty sure that's what the rule Keith put in. But it just works. It's fun, right? Like, and I think I think it's more, at least in Herbaceous Sprouts, it's a little bit more in line with what solo players I think like. One of the pieces of feedback we see for Herbaceous, which solo mode I love, is that they feel like it's a bit too random.
That's right here. That was me.
That was you, yeah. And so it just feels like it's and there's no, and so it's random, or you just don't have the agency you need, and you basically like if you don't have a good deal or good shuffle, you're not gonna do well. That kind of thing, that kind of feedback. For me, like I think it's a beautiful version of solitaire. Like when I think of what that's emulating, to me, that's getting a deck of cards, laying out a table, and just dealing with what was the flop was. And it's a very different solo play. It's a much more Sunday tea solo play than it is a sort of min-max solo play. And so I think different people like different things, but very much, again, I think a lot of people who just don't play solo games can still sit down with Herbaceous and be like, oh, it's like a fast version of the game with some neat little dynamics. Herbaceous Sprouts solo mode is more plotting, more thoughtful. So I think in your case, you might like it a little bit more.
I love the Sunset Over Water mode. If it's anything like that, then yeah, I'm in. Like I am true. Like I'll tell you right now. I did the review, so it's all public. I did a couple of episodes ago during our coverage of International Tabletop Day. Got a chance to play both games. So Sunset Over Water, I completely love the game. I really enjoyed. Like I'd never seen a card game just generate mood like Sunset Over Water does. Like, you see a card game and it's like basically kind of telling you on the box, oh, this is an exciting game, or this is this game.
Sure.
But in Sunset Over Water, everything, the mechanisms, the pace of the game, the length of the game, the art of the game, everything is telling you, chill out,
Sure.
Let's think spatially, kind of try to think in a couple of dimensions at once. I love it. And I think I told Dr. Fan at the time, I really do.
Yeah.
Herbaceous, so like you said before, like it's a great fun fellow. You just like whip it out 20 minutes. I love that it's just a deck. I don't have to like put out a mat or whatever it is. That definitely has that going for it. I have this like pack of like 40 different card games that just fits in like a little PlayStation bag I take.
Sure.
Herbaceous fits right in there. It's like boom, done. I'm going. The solo I didn't like because like the sense of agency, like okay, the decker already has the win or the loss, in it, and it's just a question of okay, how can I, kind of move through it? And I guess that's the same is true in Klondike Solitaire to an extent. We had a user, Oda, who was an awesome fan who just like, pops in and comments and everything and very engaging. He loves the solo mode as well and recommended the advanced version of the Herbaceous solo, which is you play once, you cut the deck in half, you play once, and then you play with the other half of the deck. So you've kind of taken out the randomness in the sense of, now you know what's in that first deck, and you can just kind of move to the second deck and make your decisions based off that. Seems a bit more strategic. I didn't enjoy that because I don't enjoy like the memory aspect of that stuff. But I think that's out there. Just wanted to give a shout out to Oda.
No, I know, and I think that again, one of the things that I really liked about Keith's solo on Sunset is there's a certain puzzly element to multiplayer Sunset Over Water, but you're going for gold cards and other players are moving. You're not, you have to deal with sort of the dynamics of the moment / puzzling out your move. The solo mode is really how am I going to get where I want to go and what's going to flip when I do. And so it really, you don't have anyone else messing with you. You're really just sort of trying to plan out your move and your next move and position yourself. So no, it works. And again, I like them all, right? And actually, you're probably in the category. Have you played Heroes and Tricks?
I have not.
Don't. You wouldn't like it. You wouldn't like it. You might like Legendary Creatures if you like heavier games.
It depends. It depends on my mood. I like when a package comes together, so to speak. Like, sure. A game like Sunset Over Water, if the theme was like, a net hack or something like that, where you're doing the same thing, but it's like a bunch of @ symbols and whatever, like the original net hack game, then I don't know if I would have enjoyed it so much. But like Beth's art is just
Well,
gangbusters.
and I don't, I've told this story a number of times. I don't know if you've heard it before, but actually, the way we do the way we do this line, if you will, is when you start into a new one of these projects, it's like, hey, Beth, the first one, Beth had already made the art for Herbaceous for a reskin of Bonanza. And then I saw it and I was like, what's that for? And she was like, oh, it's just this reskin. I was like, you want to make a new game with it? And then we added some more cards ultimately, but with Sunset Over Water and then our unannounced fourth game, it was like, hey, Beth, what do you want to draw? Like, what are you in the mood for? And she's like, well, I could do this or that. And then we sort of go, hey, Steve, what do you think would be a fun game you want to work on? And so it's just a fun process. And I think so far it's resulted in a really sort of cohesive feel. I think one of the interesting things is, and this is, since I run a lot of Kickstarters, Herbaceous Sprouts is a bigger game. I mean, it's got 30 custom dice, it's got a board, it's got cards, it has tokens. I mean, I've made bigger games, but the price point's going to be higher, right? It's not, a $19 Kickstarter. And so, one of the questions is, how willing is the audience to say, all right, well, I'll put another, whatever, $10 in, and we'll see, or $15. we'll see. I definitely, it will be. I think it'll go over. I think people will be really excited with what they get. But I do, whenever you do a Kickstarter, whenever you do things that you test the boundaries of audiences, you learn things. Is it that the audience is there for simple, beautiful, fantastic games and they don't mind paying for a little bit of a different game, or are they there for the cheap filler and they're not really up for paying for more? Those are the kinds of things you find out. One way or the other, I'll find out. And by the time this launches, I'll know.
So, I mean, the reason I brought up the Sagrada comparison was that you never know what game is going to kind of hit that sweet spot for a gamer of like, look, I can show this to my family and I can play this by myself and have a good time with it. And it just kind of like, we didn't know, we had no idea that this game about stained glass windows was going to, be this thing that wins a lot of family-based awards. And it could be that this game fills that same role. So, we'll see what happens.
We will. And again, for me, a little bit, I think that would be amazing, but I feel like we're really tuned into the Herbaceous audience and they're in the Sunset Over Water audience. And when we think of these games, we think of those players. And, I think Herbaceous Sprouts is one that could, go a little wider, pull more people in. But, I think if people, like, it's been really wonderful. Not every, some people like Sunset Over Water more than Herbaceous. Some people like Herbaceous more than Sunset. But by and large, I feel like somebody who enjoyed Herbaceous also enjoys Sunset. Like, not everybody, but I feel like if they came back and they say, hey, we like that other game you did, now let's see this one, I feel like I've delivered against the marketing and the promise. And so that if Herbaceous does that, we'll be happy. Herbaceous Sprouts, rather.
Very cool. So that is Herbaceous Sprouts that we've been talking about. Also Herbaceous, also Sunset Over Water, in the same line of games. These kind of small filler games from Ed and Dr. Finn and Beth Sobel and a whole team, a whole family of people. The band. There you go. So the Kickstarter is live. Go ahead and check it out. Hopefully this podcast gave you a lot of info so that you know whether you want to back just a Sprouts game or want to back,
we have bundles with all the different ones.
Or even all three of them. So thank you very much, Ed, for your time. Take care.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
All right, that's going to do it for another episode of the Every Night is Game Night preview series. Once again, thank you for joining us, and thanks to Ed for joining us as well, talking about Herbaceous Sprouts. In that line of simple dice games, but they have a lot of strategy. We're talking Sagrada. Another one that I was thinking of was Nautilion. Don't hear too much about that one, but that's another solid kind of thinkier dice game. So if you're looking for something along those lines in the Herbaceous line with that kind of motif, then maybe you want to check this one out. All right, so that's going to do it for this episode. If you want to reach out to us, go ahead and hit us up at ENGN_podcast on the Twitter, BoardGamersAnonymous.com, or EveryNightIsGameNight.com. They are hosted on the same server, so you can go ahead and hit us up, throw us an email or a comment or anything like that. We can also be reached on Facebook, lots and lots of groups, solo games, Board Game Revolution, the board game group, all that kind of thing. I am user Pup6this on BGG, so it is not a mystery. We are all over the place. Please, we love to hear your comments. Probably the most fruitful place to leave a comment or some kind of rating or something like that is the iTunes store, or any place where you can rate podcasts. We're talking Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, all that kind of stuff. Give us a rating, 5 stars or however many stars you think we deserve. That helps us rise to the top and spread the gospel of all the games that we are talking about to as many people as possible. So that's it. This is Jason signing off. Later, everybody.